Welcome to the World of Biology through Jaguar classes from Jagran Public School, Noida. In today's class of this chapter, Principles of Inheritance and Variation, Part 5, we will cover the topics related with different deviations from Mendel's laws of inheritance, in which we will focus on the two deviations from Mendel's laws of dominance, that is incomplete dominance and codominance. After today's class, the learning outcomes that we are expecting: knowledge based category, you will be able to define incomplete dominance and codominance as phenomenon of inheritance, and you will also be able to describe incomplete dominance and codominance with the help of examples. In skill based learning outcomes, you would be able to compare and differentiate law of dominance from complete, or we can say that complete dominance from incomplete dominance and codominance. You will also be able to critically analyze the result of incomplete dominance and codominance with reference to complete dominance concept of Mendelian inheritance. And the competencies that we are expecting after today's class, after this teaching learning session: collaborative approach. You can use the collaborative approach for critical thinking and problem solving, communication, and analytical skills also can be developed. Now let's start with our today's class. In today's class of that principle of inheritance and variation, we are talking about deviations from Mendel's laws, and in this we will cover the topic incomplete dominance and codominance. About the other deviation, multiple allelism, polygenic inheritance, pleiotropy, and epistasis, we will take in later on classes. Today we will focus on these two deviations of Mendel's laws, that is incomplete dominance and codominance. Let's start with the Mendel's concept of inheritance about the traits. How do these flowers inherit color? Here are two examples. One is of pea plant and another is of snapdragon flower. Now in pea plant, as Mendel has studied, purple and white color flower plant when crossbreeded, then in F1 generation, due to law of dominance, Mendel has observed all the plants with purple color flower, which showed that this color purple is dominant over the white. But in this another case of that flower of snapdragon, we can see here the result of F1 generation after crossbreeding the red color flower and white color flower. Here the mixture or blending of the color is seen in the form of pink color. Now the question is, how is this inheritance different from the inheritance of flower color in pea plant? And do you notice a difference in pattern of inheritance in both the cases? Now let's start to get the answer of this. Actually, in case of snapdragon, there is a concept or phenomenon of incomplete dominance was observed, and this is the first deviation that is observed by the scientist, where they have seen the result deviated from Mendel's law of dominance. In case of incomplete dominance, the F1 generation has a phenotype that is blend of the parents' phenotypes, because the allele capital R is not completely dominant over the small r. Means red is not completely dominant over the white, due to which even after taking in parent generation two different pure traits in the form of pure red and pure white, in F1 generation we have received or we got the pink color flowers, and in F2 generation the ratio is 1 is to 2 is to 1, means there are three phenotypes are clearly seen here. With red there is one flower, with white there is one flower, and two are showing pink color. Here the contrasting characters which have blended in the experiment or in the result, that is red and white, give rise to pink. F2 generation phenotype ratio in this case, you can see that how deviated from the Mendel's ratio, that was 3 is to 1. Here you can see that the ratio is coming 1 is to 2 is to 1, like that of genotypic ratio. But the genotypic ratio in both the cases were the same. Now, the another deviated results has been seen in case of human population, where the scientists have given this new phenomenon which is deviated from the complete dominance of the Mendel, that is codominance. In this case of deviation, in codominance, the F1 generation resembles both the parents, means both the alleles are expressing their expression in offsprings. Like in case of human blood group, you can see here RBCs with surface sugar, we are showing the two different blood groups, blood group A and blood group B. Now in the case of this, where the RBCs having the surface sugar as A type, the genotype may be IA, IA or I naught or small I, which is representing the phenotypically blood group A. And in second case, where the RBCs with surface sugar of B type, the genotype may be IB or IB or I naught or small I, which is showing the blood group B in human beings. And in this third case, the RBCs have both the type of protein sugar or both the types of sugar on the surfaces of that RBC with genotype IA, IB, where I is denoting the gene for the blood grouping, and due to the presence of these two sugars, the blood group is AB type, means both the type of sugars are showing effect of their in the human blood group. And in this case, where neither A nor B type of sugar are present, means both are absent, in that case the genotype is small I, which is known as I naught, and that blood group is represented as blood group O. Here, in this example of codominance, the gene I determines the ABO blood group in human beings. These are the two deviated results has been seen by the biologist, which are different from the Mendel's law of dominance. Now try to understand these two concepts of deviation from Mendel's law with the help of the another presentation in second session of this class that I am showing to you. But multiple alleles and other deviated result we will discuss in later on class. Now with the help of this presentation, try to understand the concept of incomplete and complete dominance. Now,
incomplete dominance and codominance. For a moment, let's consider the black and white mice. that can be found in many laboratory settings. Suppose that a black female mouse was crossed with a white male mouse. What would be the color of their offspring? According to Mendel's principles, we can estimate that a certain percentage will be black and the remaining will be white. However, in nature, genetics is not always that simple. A black mouse and a white mouse could also produce a gray offspring. Let's look at the genetics of just such a situation. When one gene doesn't completely mask another trait. For this, we'll use snapdragons, flowers which are homozygous for either red or white petals. Using a Punnett square, we'll separate the genes into the gametes and then examine the possible offspring. On the square, we'll use R to represent red flower and W to represent white flower. Because neither the red or white color is dominant, we'll use capital letters on both. The fusion of the two gametes will result in offspring which are neither white nor red. Instead, all are pink. A completely red phenotype and a completely white phenotype will produce a third, pink, which is a blending of the parental phenotypes. If we look at the genotype, all of the offspring will be also heterozygous, having genes from both the red and white. Neither color dominates the other. When two different traits are crossed, the appearance of a blended intermediate trait in the F1 generation is known as incomplete dominance. Codominance. In certain cases, both the dominant and recessive traits will occur simultaneously, without blending. This phenomenon is known as codominance. When cattle with a red coat of hair are bred with cattle having a white coat, Mendel's law of dominance says that one color will dominate the other, and the principle of incomplete dominance says that the two colors could also blend to produce a third. However, in the case of codominance, the F1 generation can produce cattle with a roan coat. In the roan coat, every hair will be either completely white or completely red, and the colors will occur in definite patches. A Punnett square shows that both the red and white haired traits are dominant. We'll use R to represent the red haired cattle and white to represent the white haired cattle. Again using capital letters since all traits are dominant. Summary. When two traits are crossed to produce offspring with a blended third type of trait, such a phenomenon is known as incomplete dominance. When two dominant traits are crossed and both are expressed individually, the phenomenon is known as codominance.
Now I hope that both the concept of deviations as codominance and incomplete dominance are clear with the help of these two examples. And now with the help of this presentation, try to understand the concept of codominance in human population with reference to the blood group here.
Inheritance of human blood groups. Human blood groups, also known as blood types, are inherited through a phenomenon known as codominance. With codominance, both the dominant and recessive traits will occur simultaneously and without blending. Based on the reactions of antigens and two antibodies, human blood groups are most commonly divided into four types: A, B, AB, and O. These four groups can be expressed through the use of three different alleles: IA, IB, and I. IA and IB are the dominant allele, while I is recessive. IA will produce antigen A, IB will produce antigen B, and the recessive allele I will not produce any antigen. During inheritance, the two dominant alleles will not blend, but will instead be expressed in the phenotype as two different traits. An individual with IA-IB will produce both A and B antigens and will therefore possess AB blood group. Let's look at the inheritance blood groups from different sets of parents. If the gametes from both parents have dominant IA alleles, all the children will inherit an IA allele, meaning each child will have the blood group A. If the gametes from both parents have dominant IB alleles, all the children will inherit an IB allele, meaning each child will have blood group B. If both parents have recessive alleles I, all children will inherit the recessive non-antigen producing alleles. This means the blood groups of their offspring will be similar to that of their parents O. Let's look at a case in which one parent has a dominant IA allele and one recessive allele I, and the other parent has one dominant IB allele and one recessive allele I. In this inheritance, both dominant alleles will pass to 25% of the children through a codominant pattern, resulting in blood group AB. 25% of their children will have group A, 25% will have group B, and the remaining 25% will have both recessive alleles, group O. Summary: the human blood groups are divided into four types: A, B, AB, and O, based on the reactions of antigens and two antibodies. The four blood groups are expressed by the three different alleles IA, IB, and I. IA and IB are dominant alleles, and lowercase I is recessive. When two dominant traits are crossed and both are expressed individually, the phenomenon is known as codominance. Human blood groups are inherited through codominance.
Now, with that, I hope that the concept of blood grouping with reference to codominance concept, which is a deviated result from Mendel's law of dominance, is clear to all of you. And with that, I will complete our today's class, and rest of the deviation results we will discuss in next